Somehow I got booted off. I think I'm back on now.
Yes, you are.
Can I call this meeting to order because I missed that announcement?
Okay, this meeting is being conducted virtually, so I will do a roll call of the trustees to confirm attendance. Mr. Knox,
Good morning, I'm here.
Mr. Santos,
Present.
Ms. Gray, Mr. Bernstein,
I am here.
Mr. Sanchez, Mr. Moore,
I'm here.
Mr. Kehoe is not attending, Ms. Zapanta, Mr. Pryor,
I'm here.
Mr. Harris,
I'm here.
Chair Robbins. And staff participating in the meeting include CEO Santos Kryman, Deputy CEO Louis Lugo, AEOs JJ Popowich and Laura Guglielmo, Chief Counsel Stephen Rice, Legislative Affairs Officer Barry Liu from Retiree Healthcare, Cassandra Smith, Director, and Kathy Makita, consultants Stephen Murphy, Richard Ward, Michael Zito, Stephanie Messier from Siegel. Trustees, please use the Zoom chat option to be placed in queue. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute your mics until you are ready to speak, and we may now proceed with the agenda.
Mr. Chair, we are short of a quorum, so no action can be taken.
Wayne Moore is present, no? So he's the alternate?
Yeah, we have Mr. Robbins and Mr. Moore, but we're missing Ms. Gray or Mr. Kia. Either one of those would make a quorum, but right now we've just got 2 out of 4, which is not a quorum.
Let me text Vivian, see.
Mr. Rice, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Can the chair appoint a interim member
No.
and put them on the committee
No,
to satisfy the quorum?
no, that's not permitted because the public is noticed as to who the members of the committee are.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Terry, I got booted off for the 3rd time in a row, so I don't know where we're at right now. I just logged back on, so it just keeps on sending me off into Never Never Land.
Well, I made the announcements, but we do not have a quorum, so we can't do any of we can't do the action items.
Okay.
We're not giving Mr. Sanchez a great first impression.
Well, we live in a real world.
At this point, good morning, everybody. At this point, we roll with what we got, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So where are we, Terry? Where do we go next?
Then I have no public comment. So then
We're
we're
on
moving-
3A.
we're moving to for information.
Okay.
Right.
Well, for information only, Mr. Liu, item 4A, engagement report. You're up.
Yes, thank you, Chair Robbins. Good morning, Chair Robbins and committee trustees. So just some items of interest for you this month. So the first item is a congressional research report that basically just summarizes worker participation in pension plans. These stats aren't a big surprise. Basically, public sector workers compared to private sector workers have access to either a DB or DC plan. But public sector workers tend to be more likely than private sector workers to have access to a pension plan, whereas on the flip side, private sector workers tend to have access to a DC plan compared to public sector workers. And then also union workers were more likely to have access to a pension plan than non-union workers. And then, those workers in higher paying occupations also tend to have more access to an employer sponsor plan than those in lower wage tiers. And then finally, access rates are higher for those in large businesses compared to small businesses. But as far as the 401k plan is concerned, that came into being in 1978, it's almost 45 years ago. And according to somebody from the TIA Institute, he feels that the 401k plan is still not a true retirement plan and must be reformed to be more than simply an accumulation vehicle. So some of those reforms would make it easier for retirees to get a fixed sum like Social Security, and also to change the rules on required distributions, since people tend to work longer now. So, raising the required distribution age would be more in line with this idea. And Congress is currently considering doing that with the Secure Act 2.0. And then I think last month I reported that the U.S. Department of Labor have been withholding the public infrastructure funds from California due to a conflict with PEPRA and public transit workers in California. So they held up about $12 billion in funds because they were saying that the PEPRA had infringed upon the collective bargaining rights of public transit workers. The state of California appealed that, and the court has granted a request. So that clears a way for the funds to be transferred to California. One of the discussion points was that maybe it would make sense to exempt public transit employees from PEPRA, but the court said that you can do that, but that's a matter for legislation as opposed to the court deciding that. And then a couple of years ago, I reported on the fact that in Illinois, there were about 650 local police and firefighter pension plans that were going to consolidate their investments, which totaled about 16 billion in two separate funds, as opposed to the 650 separate funds, just to have a better economy of scale in investing. They were supposed to have implemented this by later this year in June, but so far, not a whole lot has been done in the transfer of assets. And then a lawsuit has also been filed contending that this consolidation violates vested rights in the state constitution. And then speaking of funding source for pensions, the next two items talks about dedicated funding sources. Generally, pensions are funded from the general funds of plan sponsors, but our neighbor in the south here, South Pasadena, they're a CalPERS agency. So they recently decided to dedicate revenue from their cell phone tower leases to CalPERS with about a total of 4.3 million to them, with 600,000 for OPEB benefits, and then the other 3.7 for their general and safety plans. And so they would essentially make this sort of a advanced contribution that would bring a better return than simply investing in their local agency investment fund at 0.5%. But as far as the next item with the Pittsburgh City Council, they're going to dedicate about 15 years worth of their parking tax revenues to their pension plan. What's interesting about this is they're doing this because a plan provision had been repealed in the plan that basically for certain employees would cause a reduction of 50% in their pension payment once they hit maximum Social Security retirement age. A pretty drastic decrease, but because they've repealed that provision, they now have to fund it. So they're looking at dedicated sources like their parking taxes. And then finally, it's been 2 years since our COVID. And so the National Center for Health Statistics, which is part of CDC, released this report on 2020 US mortality data. So as you can see here, in 2020, life expectancy was 77 years, which is a decrease of 1.8 years from 2019. The death rate has increased, to 715 per 100,000 in 2019 to 835 in 2020. And then as far as age-specific death rates are concerned, everybody over the age of 15, those death rates have increased from 2019 to 2020. And then finally, COVID has now become the third leading cause of death, but it still has not displaced the first two, which are heart disease and cancer. So that concludes my report, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Liu?
I have a quick question, Mr. Chair. Mr. Liu, on the dedicated funding sources for pensions, anything about whether or not those are revocable? Whether, the city council could flip and, decide to use that money for something else?
That I'm not sure of. In other words, if a certain cohort of a city council has made that decision already, I guess they would maybe a different cohort would need to bring that issue back, but it would seem unlikely to kind of reverse something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Robbins, we do now have a quorum.
I have a quorum now. Vivian's here. Right?
That's correct. We do now have a quorum.
Right.
Yes.
So are you finished, Mr. Lou? That's it?
Yes, I'm done. Thanks.
Okay. So the record can reflect we now have a quorum. We're operating legally, Mr. Rice. How about staff activities report? Item 4B, Cassandra.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. On December 21st, the Board of Supervisors did approve the continuation of our Medicare Part B reimbursement program, which means that we were able to send out our mass mailing notification to the members and begin processing the enrollments that the verifications that we had received in office as of the end of December prior to our deadline. We were able to complete processing the enrollment of the ones that the members had sent in starting back from November through December. And as of this morning or last night, we've already processed over 2,300 of them. And that's it.
That is it. Any questions? How's the call center doing, Sandra? You guys getting a
Not
few
too
phone
well.
calls?
Yeah, we're not both. RHC as well as member services are getting crunched with calls. And most of them are to verify what it is that we've sent, what we've said in the letter, and what verification they need to send.
Okay. We are on item C. I see Mr. Murphy's smiling face. You're up, Steve.
Happy New Year, everyone. Attaches the update of experience through November 2021. Again, first page, just a recap of distribution of premium and enrollment by plan. So not much change there. On this particular exhibit, I want to focus on the lower portion of the chart, which is the comparison of a prior period, 12-month period, year over year, the various plans. So Anthem up about 5.2% over the prior 12-month period, Cigna up 6.5%, and Kaiser, which is presented last month. There's no update to this. This is updated typically every 90 days. So we won't spend much time on that one. In terms of a recap, looking at the various Anthem plans, you can see the distribution of kind of increased activity over the last 12 months. So overall 5.2. For plans 1 and 2, that's a 6.6% increase. Prudent Buyer actually saw a 13.2% decrease. And plan 3, or the Medicare supplement plan, saw an increase of 5.7%. The Kaiser exhibit is unchanged from the last period, and recognizing that we've got a hard stop at 9, I'll move on. From a large claim perspective, we're seeing a slight reduction in large claims associated with Anthem, but about the same percentage. Cigna is constant, and again, no change from the prior report for Kaiser. From a prescription drug perspective, one thing we do follow on a monthly basis is the rebates received on a per retiree basis and as a percent of total pharmacy claims. So compared to the prior period, rebates are up by about 3% and represent about 25% of total claims. Last exhibit in the experience report is the dental and vision experience. Both are up significantly, but again, we need to remember the prior period accounted for a lot of suspension of services. So compared to 2019 or periods before, we're running about normal. But for this comparison, 16% increase for dental and about 20% for vision, but nothing to be alarmed by. With regard to kind of future or prospective items, our team continues to work with LACERA's vendor partners, and we'll be meeting with them on January 13th to hopefully conclude any negotiated items on the 2022-2023 renewals. And our intent is to present that to the IBLC at the February meeting. So in terms of scheduling, we'll probably need to account for probably at least an hour of time. So just want to give that to you as you do your scheduling for February. And if there are no questions, I'll close out this item.
Anyone have any questions? Thank you very much. You didn't have a lot of bad news and some good news and some news, I guess.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, in a world where there's not much good news. Item D, federal legislation. Stephen.
But the only thing we're really following as it relates to LACERA is the Build Back Better legislation for the budget. And from what I saw this morning, there's still no negotiations going on with respect to trying to find resolution to that. So we'll see where that goes over the next couple of weeks, but that's what we have at this point.
Okay. Before we move on, anybody have any questions for Mr. Murphy? Okay. Item 5, items for staff review, Terry.
Well, there are no items for staff review, but since we now have a quorum, do you want to go back and handle the action items,
Sure,
the minutes and the consent item?
let's do that. So item 1A is approval of the minutes of the meeting of December, special meeting of December 1st. So I need a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Are there any changes or amendments? Call the roll, Terry.
We need a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Chair Robbins.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
And then do we need to do 3A, the consent item?
We do. Yes.
Okay. I'll accept the motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Or is there any discussion on that? Did you want to add any more on that, Steve?
No, not necessary. It's
Okay.
the same justification as in prior meetings.
Okay, all right. Go ahead and call the roll, Terry.
Ms. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Chair Robbins.
Bob and I.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We're now on good of the order. So if somebody has something for good of the order, just put your hand in the air and I'll call you. Not you, Mr. Wiki. Anyone have any items for good of the order? Mr. Kryman, you got any good news for us?
I have to think about that.
All right.
Everything is just fine.
Vivian, anything?
I don't have anything. Something is wrong with my video, so that's the bad news today, or maybe
Okay,
it's
well.
good news.
Well, kicked me off 3 times and I had to log back in 3 different times. So I don't know what the heck that was all about. So
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna
Anyway.
have to log out, log back in, I guess.
So is anyone have anything else for good of the order? If not, I'll go ahead and accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Let's see.